Hello, my lovely Year 1 children. I hope you all feel well rested after your half-term break. Thank you again for a really fun party. So I'm very excited. You know that I love teaching literacy. I love reading and writing. It's my absolute favourite. Apart from P4C, it's my favourite thing to teach. And I've chosen a book called The Journey Home that we're going to be looking at over the next 4 weeks. So let's get stuck in. Okay, so as I said, it's a 4-week literacy topic, and it's all centred around the book The Journey Home by Fran Preston Gannon, which has beautiful illustrations. It's got a very important message, and the message in the story is tied to our changing world, climate change, which we're going to be learning about over the next 4 weeks together. And it is a bit of a sad story in some ways, but I think it's really, really important that children are aware of how we can look after our world and perhaps how certain types of animals suffer because of the way the world is changing. So let's have a look at what we're going to be doing over the next 4 weeks. The first fortnight is going to be all non-fiction and facts because we're going to find out about the 4 main characters in the story. We're going to find out about polar bears, giant pandas, orangutans and elephants, and they are the 4 you can probably see just there, the journey home with the 4 of those animals in the rowing boat together. So we are going to start off this week and next by learning all about them. And I've also put here that we'll be learning about conservation, climate change and looking after our world. Okay, and you might spot Greta Thunberg that actually Mia lent us in Penguins. We've read this together as a class already, called Greta and the Giants, which I'll also be recording for you this week. Okay, so the second 2 weeks will be story writing. You all did an amazing job when you wrote your Sleeping Briar Rose stories back in autumn term. And I know you had fun writing about Ma Liang and the magic paintbrush at home too. So fiction and story writing, so they have different features, don't they, stories, from all the factual non-fiction things we've been doing. So we will be writing about how the characters feel in the story. We'll be writing about the setting, so where the story is set. And we'll also be, as before, thinking about our punctuation and our language that we're using when we write. So we'll be making sure we have capital letters and full stops, and we'll be making sure we have those really impressive wow words, those adjectives which help to describe things and make the story really interesting for the reader. Okay, so Monday. Happy Monday! I can learn facts about polar bears. Now, we've been doing lots of writing using bullet points, so I thought we'd start off a little bit differently this Monday. And as you will find out in a little while, we're going to be making a model of a polar bear out of paper. And then today we're going to be writing our facts on white circles. So I would like you today to cut out the white circles for me as though they're bits of floating ice or iceberg for the polar bear to float along on, just like in the story The Journey Home. So pay really close attention to these slides so that you can learn lots and lots of polar bear facts for me. So hopefully you're sitting comfortably and I can begin telling you facts. So polar bears are found in the Arctic, and then this is in the northern hemisphere. So can you point to north? Point upwards in the top half of the world. So polar bears are found in the Arctic, in the top half of the world. Wonder if you could find the Arctic on a globe, perhaps, or on a map of the world. And it says here that the temperature falls so low in winter that the sea freezes. Now, I wonder if all you Year 1s can remember all the way back to when we wrote our Ourselves and Other Animals books. And remember, we drew polar bears and we labelled them. So you already know some polar bear facts. So you might want to write some of the ones that you can remember on your floating ice today as well. Let's have a read of these ones. So polar bears will travel for miles on the sea ice to find food. They use their excellent sense of smell to find seals hiding under the snow. Oh no, poor seals. But we spoke, didn't we, about the circle of life and how that there are natural predators and prey, and it's just a part of survival and animals being able to live. And it says here that they can smell an injured seal from over a mile away, so they have a really excellent sense of smell. Let's see what other facts there are. Oh, look at that one there. So beautiful, aren't they? They are just such stunning animals. It says here that they spend most of the year surrounded by snow and ice, and their fur lets them blend in. Maybe you know a grown-up word to describe that. I bet you do. It also traps heat from their bodies to help keep them warm in freezing temperatures. Okay, just before I move on, I wonder if you can remember that fact about their fur colour that we learnt before. Maybe you can. So we learnt facts previously. We've also learnt a few there. And look at that picture there. That's the fun activity that we're doing today. So for our Monday activity, it says, can you make a 3D polar bear? Can you write polar bear facts on icebergs? So if you head over to our Google Classroom, you will find the model template there that I've saved for you and your grown-ups. And then hopefully you've all got some white paper and you can cut out some circles of ice for him to float on. Can you remember the facts from today? Can you remember any additional facts from last time when we looked at polar bears? Good luck for this Monday activity. Hello Year 1 and welcome to our Tuesday lesson. So something a little bit different today. I bought this story for you called Hunter's Icy Adventure. Just look at that front cover. What Arctic animals can you spy? Have a little look. And the activity for today is to listen to me read you this story. So if you go back onto the classroom, you will find slides just like these, but called Hunter's Icy Adventure, and I will be reading the book to you and showing you all the pictures. So that's the first thing you have to do, is listen really carefully to the story. And then you have to find a sheet called Book Review that's found on our classroom and do some writing for me about the story. So it's a bit like when we do guided reading. Okay, and then we ask you some follow-up questions. So this is to check your comprehension, which means to check your understanding of the story. Okay, so have you understood it? Can you answer questions about where the story is set, about what happens in the story, about the main character? I will also ask you about the title and the author or authors, plural. And it's also, because it's a book review and you are reviewing it, you can talk about if you enjoyed the story or not. And honestly, it is absolutely fine if perhaps it wasn't one of your favourite stories because there was a part in it that you weren't keen on. And also I've put, can you talk and write about how the book made you feel? But I also, one of the questions is how you think Hunter, the character, feels in the story as well. Because it's really important to be able to talk about characters' feelings. So this is about answering questions on your understanding. This is about listening really carefully so that you can remember the plot and what's happening, and also just letting me know perhaps what your favourite part of the story was, whether you enjoyed it, how it made you feel. Because just like with the story Our Journey Home, which we will be reading and looking at over the next few weeks, there might be elements that are sad, because it is sad to think about the ice melting and animals having a difficult time. But I also think, as I said before, that it's just so important to think about too. So, Hunter's Icy Adventure. Let me know what you think, and I'm really looking forward, and I know Miss Revel is looking forward to reading your book reviews when we ask for your literacy in this week. Okay, year ones, so this lesson, this Wednesday lesson, has lots and lots of information in and lots of facts. And if you can remember even some of the information from today, that means you're just like a year 2, 3 or 4, or maybe even more grown up. You will know things that even some adults don't know. Okay, now this book here, Greta and the Giants, I am going to record an audio for you so that you can listen to me reading it. So you can find that on our classroom, just because I think that's a great story. And thank you, Mia, for introducing it to me. And so today we're going to be talking about climate change. And the reason I'm talking about Greta there is because that is something that she cares so much about. Greta is a real girl, she's a Swedish schoolgirl, and she really cares about looking after our world. You can see there's a sad photograph there of a polar bear whose ice really is melting. So it's important to think about all of these things as we go along. So for Wednesday, I can learn about climate change. Let's just break that down first of all. So change, we understand that change, something is changing, something is different, okay? And climate, you may have spoken about with Miss Taylor and Mrs. Rickesis in science. So in the UK or in England, we have a temperate climate. That means it changes lots. It's subject to change. So in England, in London, you can wake up one day and it's snowing. You can wake up the next day and it feels a bit more like spring with the sun. So we're thinking about climate change means that things in the world are changing too quickly and not in the way that we would like to see. So our world is getting too hot. Okay. And this is a very, very grown-up idea, and that's what I've written here. It's about the world changing because actually humans aren't looking after it well enough. And the reason that I feel hopeful and happy for our future is because I know children like you, our lovely year ones, are going to really help us look after the world as you grow up. Okay, so even though the text in this slide is quite small and you probably won't be able to read the majority of it, I just wanted to flag up this book as a really good book recommend. So you can see the front cover there on the top left. It's called What a Waste. It's published by Dorling Kindersley, and it's just a really good non-fiction fact book all about our world, about the earth, about climate change, and about ways that we can help as well. So I just thought I would show you that one. There is a little bit you can see there about melting ice, and you can see how much the world getting hotter has shrunk the ice there just in that space of time from 1980 to 2012, which obviously is a big problem for polar bears. So I would highly recommend this book. Okay, and I will be taking some of my facts from this book over the next few. Okay, so I've spoken about the world changing and how human beings aren't helping the world enough, and how in fact we're doing some things to the world to make it change. So let's have a look first of all at what is happening to our world that isn't good. So we've got here, you can see shrinking glaciers, so the ice shrinking. We've got rising sea levels. We've got plants shifting location, which then impacts on the wildlife. Trees and plants flowering much early in the year. And number 5, which is really important for this book that we're reading, The Journey Home, is about animal species becoming endangered. So if you think about that word endangered and we break it down, we're talking about that the animals, so they're, for example, they've got a picture of a lion. We're thinking about animals that are in trouble because they may die out, which means that in the wild their numbers are getting much smaller and less and fewer, if we're using all that language from maths. Okay, so for example, when we look at elephants next week and we're thinking about why elephant numbers are getting smaller, you might have heard about mean poachers or hunters, okay, that hurt the elephants for their tusks, which is really sad. So there are lots of different reasons why different species of animals are becoming endangered. But climate change is one of them. So the polar bear numbers are much, much smaller now because, if you look here again, the ice is melting, the sea levels are rising. And that's why the polar bear in the journey home leaves the Arctic. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. So it says here, what are the consequences of not doing enough? Goodness me, that's a long word. That just means what will happen if we don't do more to help. So let's have a look through here. So up to 30% of the Earth's wildlife could become extinct. Now we're going to look more at extinct animals next week. And extinct means that they're completely died out. So for example, dodos are extinct. There are no more dodos on the earth. So they're saying that with climate change and global warming and the earth getting too hot, actually it will start to really affect our wildlife and our animals. And you can see there, it will really affect the oceans and the coral reefs. And if the coral reefs are affected, then all the fish are affected, and then all the bigger marine life that eats those fish is then affected. There's a knock-on effect for all the different types of wildlife and animals. And you can see here that the crops will start to fail because if they're dependent on rain, but the world is getting a lot hotter, they will start to fail. Okay, but don't worry, because I know this is all quite grown up and I don't want any of you to be sat there feeling anxious thinking about our poor planet Earth, because you are our year one superheroes. You have wonderful grown-ups and families, and there are things that we can do. So let's have a look. Okay, so if you zoom down to that bottom sentence after the ellipsis there, and for an ellipsis we do dun, 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 don't we? And it says, and you can help. So lots of people are working hard to try to save the polar bear, and you can help. Okay, if you want to have a flick through and read those sentences about the polar bear on top there, you can, but I want to focus now on the positives. Let's see what we can do to help the world. Let's hop over to the next slide. Okay, so it says here the biggest problem for polar bears is climate change. Humans can do some little things to try to stop the world from getting too warm. So have a read of these. Even simple things like turning off the taps when you're brushing your teeth, switching off lights, switching off your television, switching off your game consoles like PlayStations and things like that when you're not using them. Trying to travel, and I know it's not always easy, but trying to travel by bicycle or on foot instead of using the car. Okay, and look there, avoiding plastic bags when you go shopping. Maybe your grown-ups have a bag for life bags. So look, they're small things, but we can make a difference. We can all make a difference. So this was actually in the back of Hunter's Ice Sea Adventure. And I really like this because it shows us how we can help, and then it makes us think about that main character again and other polar bears like him. So have a read through of that list. Let's see. Oh, they're talking about taps. So leaky taps waste water. Let's get those leaky taps sorted and fixed, making sure we turn them off the lights. Have we got low energy light bulbs? Are we making sure we unplug our electronics? Because look, that can save 10% of energy. How many outside doors do we have? And are we closing them tightly when we come in or out? How many windows do we have? And do they all close tightly? And look, there it says, drafty doors and windows lose heat in winter. And it's all about trying to be really careful with how we're managing ourselves and our households as well. And also, what temperature is our thermostat set? And it says below 19 degrees is recommended. And actually, this is something that I went away and checked, because Chris, my husband, always always laughs at me at how often I want the heating on. But that's another important thing to think about. So lots of things here that you can be doing. Okay, let's see what we're going to do with all this new information that we have. Let's see what we can do with it. Okay, so our Wednesday activity is to make a poster or a banner or a placard like Greta when she goes on those wonderful demonstrations. I once made a banner because my mum and dad wanted to cut the tree down in my back garden, and it was my favourite tree that I used to climb every day after school. And I made a placard, I put it on a big piece of wood, and I marched around the tree. Save my tree, save my tree. And they really appreciated the effort. So that's quite fun. You might want to make a poster, and this is what the title I would love the title to be: How You Can Help the World. So we've got to think of ourselves as superheroes. Is it going to be about recycling? Is it going to be about reusing? Is it going to be being mindful of plastic, or being mindful of electricity and electronics? Have a think. And then I've got here just a picture just to remind you those important things about posters. So you want shorter sentences, you want really bright, colourful, a nice attention grabbing picture or title, maybe some bullet points thrown in there. So how you can help the world. And can I just say, I am so incredibly proud of you for listening to this lesson, because I know there are lots of grown-up ideas in here. So well done if you've only even remembered one or two of them. That still means you're a real life superhero and you can help us to help the world.